Hey guys, Zane Vonsali, aka Ipengu here with VGBC Rishi, who has kindly invited me into his home to do a little interview.
Yeah.
Rishi, you just won the MDVA Invitational. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
How do you feel about going back to your old stomping grounds and showing them who's boss?
Feels good. I definitely feel like it's beneficial for me and for them, for me to have come back. I've learned a lot while I'm here in New York. Give some of them a wake-up call, but also get some practice down there that I don't get up here. I don't really get any Marth practice or Peach practice while I'm up in New York. It's mostly spacies around here, so
Right.
It's definitely fun coming back to MDVA.
MDVA is a region that in the past year and a half, 2 years, has seen a real resurgence in terms of a new vanguard of players making big names. You're one of them. Zane, obviously. Junebug, once he switched over to Melee full-time, has been making some pretty big waves too. Why do you think that's happened recently?
Good question. I think it starts with just a few people getting motivated and putting in time and then getting really good and then showing other people that it's possible to get really good. So Junebug and I actually lived together in Charlottesville for a couple of years while we went to school at UVA, and we would just grind Smash like 2-3 hours a day, especially when PM was big. But we would play Melee and I would thrash him, and just over and over with every character. And then eventually, like, he started taking it more seriously, and he's got a very like analytical approach to these things, so he gets good very fast when he applies himself. And then a similar thing with Zane. I didn't get to play with Zane quite as often, but he was on the come up in 2014-15 for the first time, and I would run into him at locals, around Central Virginia, Southern Virginia, and I would be like, yo, like, you're a Marth nerd like me, like, here's some new tricks. And then I'd see him again like a month or two later, and he'd mastered everything that we talked about from the previous time, and he just learned so fast. Like, that actually happened while we played at the cave last Monday before the Invitational.
Right.
And I beat him there, and then we came to the Invitational on Saturday, and we were playing friendlies before the event started, and he already was using something that I'd used on him before that never was done before. I was like, you took notes and you already learned this thing. It was pretty cool. So, just showing people that hard work pays off has motivated more people in our region, I think.
Well, speaking of the dichotomy between you and Zane, and also Junebug, one thing that was interesting from the results from the MDVA Invitational, where Junebug got second, and Laud ended up taking third, and then Zane got fourth. Chudat placed 8th, and one thing we see out of MDVA a lot, I think, is that people who succeed locally in MDVA may not necessarily have the same performances out of region, and in contrast, people who struggle in MDVA, like Chu, regionally, have had a lot of success out of region. Why do you think that is?
So, I think people like to say that a lot. I don't think it's necessarily true.
Really? Okay.
I think, like, we see Junebug's success is really great in region. People often talk about how he was ranked first for a little while. For context, that was largely because he had winning records on me and Zane, and because he and Laud were even-ish. Laud had the edge, but June's record in region put him ahead. And you might say June doesn't do as well outside of region. Well, one thing to consider is that he's been on the come-up pretty recently, as in the last year.
Right.
So the number of nationals that he's been able to enter is lower than most people, and when you are on the come-up, you're going to have harder brackets than most people earlier on because you're seated lower. So his opportunities to make upsets against similarly or slightly better than him ranked players is not quite as available to him. So you see him go to Shine, and then he gets a little bit of a better seeding than he had at any of the previous nationals he'd been to. He gets the opportunity to beat Cyrox, and then he does beat Cyrox there. And I think as his seeds get higher, as he enters more majors and gets opportunities to fight more players, we're going to see him start taking more and more names. As for Chu's success, Chu's obviously a really strong player. I think he's got one of the best fundamentals of any Smash player, especially for someone who's been playing for so long and been able to keep up in the meta. That said, I do think some of his better wins this year have been thanks to unfamiliarity with the Ice Climbers matchup. A lot of the top 10 players who are weakest against Ice Climbers are the people that he was running into in bracket. And obviously he earned those wins because those players were not quite prepared for him. On the other hand, we have seen him have less than stellar performances where he loses to people who are typically known for being good against Ice Climbers. You know, he's lost to Crush, he's lost to Zane, he lost to Shroomed, who picked up Marth in the first place just for Ices.
Right.
You know, so that's not to discredit Chu's skill. That's just like you have to contextualize every win and every loss.
Totally. So would you say that would you say that people have a skewed view of who is actually good at the Ice Climbers matchup? Because I know up until this year, everyone went on about how Mango annihilates Ice Climbers. He destroys them. And then it seems like Chu has sort of proven them wrong. So coming from a region that knows the matchup really, really well, what's your take on that?
I don't know it as well from Fox's perspective. Mm-hmm. Though, fun fact, my first win on Chu was with my Fox, like 3.5 years ago, and then I didn't beat him until, I think it was this year again. But I'm not really sure, honestly. I think there were just like little things in the matchup that if you're not getting right, then you're gonna get punished really, really hard. Obviously, Ices have the strongest max punish in the game, because at any percent you could lose your stock. Yeah. One big thing that comes to mind is SDIing down throw down air. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to DI down and away, and then you can act. You either roll or you jump or you shine or something, and you mix it up. Yeah. And I remember watching Mango. It was the second or third time he played Chu, and he got the SDI down and away, and he rolled, and I was like, oh, this set's over. Like, Mango's gonna destroy him. And then the very next time he got the SDI, Chu just read the roll. He just wave dashed forward and then just grabbed him anyways and got the wobble. So little things like that are gonna put Chu ahead, and obviously like his fundamentals are strong enough to make it close anyways. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, you are about to depart for Pat's House.
Yeah.
Pat's House is a really exciting tournament. It's the final revival of a series that has been around for a long time, but also it's one of the last tournaments for ranking going into the 2017 ranking season. Does that impact how you're thinking about the tournament at all?
I try not to let it. Recently, since Summit, my mindset has kind of been everything that I'm doing right now is going to be aiding me in my goal of being a top 20 player. That's my immediate next goal. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think I'm, no question top 40, wherever you want to put me in there. But I think everything that I'm currently doing is trying to get me into that goal. And I'm trying not to think of it as like a results-oriented process. I'm trying to stay as engaged as possible. Like, is this thing, does this thing make me feel like I'm a top 20 player? And if it does, then I'm going to keep pursuing it and making that better. If it doesn't, then, maybe that's a habit I can leave behind. The interesting thing about Pat's House is that it's a godless tournament. Yeah. Right? Except for me, obviously.
Exactly. Smash God.
But it's a godless tournament, so there's no top 6, top 5 players there. And for me, that's kind of fitting because one of my breakout tournaments in the past couple of years was Eden, which was around the same time last year.
Mm-hmm. Really similar tournament.
Yeah, it's scary similar actually. Like the top C is what, SFAT or something. Yep. And then it's scattered players below that. And I remember I was going to Eden. I was like, I really want to do well at this tournament because it's my last chance to boost myself in the rankings. Mm-hmm. And then Tafo tweeted, Eden will be the first tournament of the next year's rankings. Yep. I was like, does that mean my chance to like boost myself is over? And in a way, it was kind of relieving. So I was like, I can just focus on my gameplay now. And then I did, pretty well. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the approach I want to take this time, is just focus on myself, focus on my personal goals rather than, my rankings for the year.
Mm-hmm. You said you're concentrating on things that make you feel like you're a top 20 player. Is that specifically things in-game tech that you're developing, or is it also mentality?
It's all of the above. The better I've gotten at the game and at competing, the more and more I realize, like, to be the best, you have to consider everything. Mm-hmm. And I feel like my ability to see the larger scope has gotten better and better as I've gotten better, because that's part of the process. At the same time, my ability to like really analyze, half of a second in a game has also gotten better. I will say the biggest difference is probably in mentality, because after a certain point, like, I know a lot about the game. Right. I can do a lot of things in the game. Eventually, it just comes down to how you're performing in the moment. Are you showing up on the day of the tournament? So when you look at these top 5 players, it's not often that you're seeing something that you've never seen before. You know, it's just that they have an array of mix-ups. They have an array of mix-ups in neutral. They have an array of mix-ups in punish game, and they're mixing them up appropriately, and they're executing them every time.
Right.
Something Tafo said to me. So at Summit, I actually asked a bunch of people, like, what do you think I need to do to go from being a top 40 player right now to being a top 20 player? And the thing Tafo said is you just have to make, like, fewer errors. Like, you can't mess small things up. And that's something I've been thinking about, too, is, like, the number of unforced errors on average for a top 100 player to top 50 to top 40, you know, and then the gaps are smaller, 35, 30, and then all the way up to top 6. Like, the number of unforced errors that top 6 players make, you can count on, you know, 1 or 2 hands per game.
Right.
Whereas as soon as you get into the top 20, the numbers increase, like, a lot.
Totally.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You just said, you know, it is clear from anyone who really follows your social media that you think a lot about the game. You have Super Smash blog. Check that out. It's really good.
Supersmash.blog.
But I'm not sure everyone knows exactly your history in the game, because you know, started making big waves around 2 years ago. You beat HBox on net play.
Yeah, that's right.
But you have actually a pretty long history in Smash, and not just with Melee. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how it's informed your mentality as a player?
Yeah, so I've actually been... So I identify the beginning of my Smash career as my Smashboards join date, as many people do.
Yeah.
Which was, for me, it was October 2005. So a long time ago.
Long time.
Yeah. And my first tournament was in Bomb 4 in MDVA, which was November 2005.
Right.
And, you know, how old was I? I was 11. And Laud was 10. So we were really the youngins for a long time, because for a while the average age was between 14 and 18. You know, my dad would drive us to tournaments and et cetera, et cetera. We would only go to maybe 2 or 3 a year, because you know, like, it's hard to convince our parents that, you know, they should take us to these tournaments, especially when we're clearly the youngest kids there, which has now changed,
right?
Largely. Now it ranges from age 10 to 30, and 30 plus. But yeah, we've been around for a long time. We've basically played every game competitively as they came out. So, you know, we played Melee from 2005 to 2008, and then we picked up Brawl when Brawl came out. And actually, neither of us really took Brawl that seriously for a while, until the Melee scene was really dying down more, and we discovered Wi-Fi on Brawl. Because all of a sudden, we could go from entering 2 or 3 tournaments a year to playing other people every single day for several hours a day, because we now had access to Wi-Fi.
Totally.
And then, you know, eventually Project M came out. I was like an alpha tester in 2010 for Project M, like way back in the day. Played that a lot with Junebug, and I played Smash 4 competitively too. I've actually played every game competitively at some point.
Yeah, I think for a while your goal was to be like the best, like, all around, right?
Yeah, I often valued, like, being diverse in my skill set.
Yeah.
One reason for that is my favorite player when I was like, you know, still a young kid was Azin. And Azin was always coined the master of diversity.
Right.
You know, he played every character.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what game he was playing, he could always do well, and I admired that a lot. So I also tried to play every character, and I still tell people that I play every character, and I do play every character.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you tweeted something a few days ago about how you wish you had two entries into a tournament, so that you could do one as solo Marth and one with random mid tiers. You said Young Link and
Doc.
Young Link and Doc could be a viable dual main to make it far. But obviously, you only do have one entry per tournament.
Yeah.
And in the past few years, we've seen you stop playing Smash 4s competitively and other stuff to focus on Melee. What's it been like for you to give up that commitment to diversity in order to pursue one goal and one character?
I don't really see it as having given up diversity. I see it as leveraging diversity more to my advantage, because I still feel like I learn a lot from the other Smash games. Actually, just in the past couple days, I've been getting the itch to play Smash 4 again, just because every once in a while I like to dip into other games and I feel like it refreshes like my neutral once I jump back into melee.
Totally, yeah.
Because sometimes I get too caught up in like certain melee specific habits, and I want to break from those habits, and I want to come at it from different angles. So about a year and a half ago, I started watching some more Street Fighter, and I'd never really been into traditional fighters. And I was like, I wonder how much I can learn about footsies and Smash from footsies and Street Fighter. So I started reading all these like Street Fighter footsies guides. I put some out. I didn't play that much, but I have like 50 or 60 hours in Street Fighter, just to like get an idea of like what it's like to play like that. And then I would try and apply it to Melee, and I would try and apply it to Smash 4. And you end up learning a lot just by studying other games and then applying it back to what you do. Because at the end of the day, like Melee is the most fun for me,
right?
And that's why I keep coming back to Melee. So yeah. Okay.
So then, going forward, 2017 and into the future 2018, what are your goals?
So that's a question that I wrestle with a lot these days, especially since I just moved to New York. Right. I finished up school last year, so now I have a job. I have a new apartment. I'm trying to like start my life basically while also doing this whole Smash esports thing. So there was a little while, actually like a month or so ago, where I was like, maybe I'm content just being at the skill level I'm at and just like coasting along and just working on other aspects of my life. And then I kind of realized that like by nature I have to feel like I'm improving, and I have to keep competing and giving it my all, because I kind of get like a stale feeling if I'm not really putting my all into it. There have been times where I've entered a tournament and I'm like, what, my goal for this tournament is I'm just gonna like try and have fun with it, not really care about the result. But if I don't feel like I'm putting my all into it, I always end up regretting it.
Right.
So I mentioned earlier, one of my immediate goals now is to really invest time into becoming a top 20 player. So we'll be doing that, and just gonna keep competing and see where it goes.
Cool. Last question. If you were to, in the future, ascend to the status of what we call gods, one of the top 6 or up there, you can debate whether it's a historical term or not, but if you got to that level, would you change your tag back to SmashCon?
Good question. I would do it, yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Remind people where I came from. Any
last things you want to say? Any shout-outs or anything before we finish?
Shout-outs to VGBC, of course, for supporting me. Without VGBC, I wouldn't be as good as I am right now.
Right.
They've, just the connection of being in VGBC has opened a lot of doors for me. Shout-outs to my crew, which is VGs. You guys know from VGs, Junebug, Lod, a few others, E, etc.
Yep.
Nintendude. So, yeah, shout-outs to those guys. Shout-outs to MDVA. Shout-outs to New York. Now I have 2 regions.
Sick. I'm the same way. I'm
yeah.
NorCal and New York.
Yeah. And shout-outs to everyone who's been supporting me and who, engages with me when talking about Smash and reading my blog and everything. I really appreciate everyone who supported me.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, guys. I just want to say, since this is my first video on my own YouTube channel, I'm going to be doing a lot more interviews like this, hopefully just on my own YouTube channel. Please give a subscribe, a like, share on Twitter, anything. I'm starting from the ground up, so any support you can give is much appreciated. Thanks, guys, and hopefully we'll see you soon. And cheer on Rishi this weekend at Pat's house.